don't know if we're rolling yet or not, but I just want to say hello again. It's me, it's Jonette, and I have another brief discussion that I would like to embark upon with you, going along with the theme of let's just have a discussion. Let's get some things on the table and discuss what I have experienced um, in my time moving here in Carroll County as what I call innocent racism. Again, just to recap a lot of things is that, I was raised in the country. I'm a country girl. When I first came to Carroll County, there was some mystery behind where exactly I moved from. When people look at me, they see city girl. When they talk to me and get to know me, they realize I am as country as they come. And honestly, I am extremely appreciative of the fact that I had the privilege of growing up in the country. My grandfather was a farmer. He farmed corn, he farmed peanuts, and he farmed soybeans. And the family were some of the largest, might have been the largest Black land owning and farming family in the county where I grew up. And because of that, the family received a lot of prestige even during a time of segregation and when Blacks were greatly mistreated. In addition to that, I don't know if I mentioned it in the other videos, but there were times growing up where owning a car was a privilege. Having more than one TV in the house was a privilege. And not everyone had it, but I was born to a father who was from the city and a mother who grew up in the country. And so I got a chance to be exposed to the best of both worlds. And so now, country mama and city daddy created a country progressive, beautiful woman. So yeah, you might see city when you see me, but I am a smoked pork eating, collard green loving, chicken raising, love to be outdoors country girl. So there, with that is a certain degree, and I really want to focus on the word privilege because people see it as a dirty word. I don't see it as a dirty word. It's a word that I think has gotten used out of context a lot, and people don't understand it. So, you might look at me and think that I'm privileged. I think I have privileges, but I don't see myself as being 100% privileged. One of the biggest things that I realized moving out here was that I had the assumption that because Carroll County is as country as it is, that the people here would be so much healthier and so much better off because they live in the country. Knowing that there's very much a lack of diversity here, that didn't scare me at all. And it did not scare me because I grew up in a very racist town. Again, I had to jump the ditch sometimes to keep from being run over by vehicles from racist people who were driving up and down the road. The street that I grew up on didn't even have a name. It was a route. Okay, it was a route number, and we had mailbox numbers, and that was it. No 911. That's the way I grew up. So there's a lot of things that I've felt about Carroll County that I'm like, man, they are so far ahead and have such great advantages, which I think the education that is presented to people in the country is much better than those that is presented to the city because you have more personal relationship with your teachers and with your community. And that's one of the reasons I really love living in Carroll County. The people here are fantastic. But it didn't come to me and being here, I don't think is by accident. Simply because of the way I grew up and the resilience that I developed. And, I don't carry hate around with me. I have fears, and my fears are very real and very justified, but hate is not one of those things that I carry with me. And I love. Not really anything else needs to come after that. I love. And love motivates a lot of the decisions that I make and a lot of things that I do. And sometimes it takes a lot of good friends to help me overcome my fear, especially fear of rejection and the fear of retaliation, just in doing some of the things that I do out of love for people who don't love me back, love for a society that'll never accept me. But, I find it that I am privileged, and I'll explain. So, moving here, there were a lot of my Black community that worried about me moving so far away from home and moving to a place with so little diversity. And there actually realized some people here that I knew from years and years and years ago, who, when they found out I was moving out to this area because they were from this area, cautioned me like, are you sure you realize for you, this is like going back in time? And I'm like, what does that mean, going back in time? Like, really? And they just said, the lack of progress, the lack of a lot of acceptance of diverse things and things that they assumed that I was, going to miss, and, assuming that I was a country girl because of, I like my lipstick, I like my progressive hair, colors, and makeup, and my high heels, which I do love my high heels, but I would break a neck and ankle and a back wearing some of that stuff here in these here unpaved roads and mountains, okay? But, that was one of the things. But with my Black community, what I realized is that in the Black community, there is a degree of privilege that you are graced with, that you are gifted. And my skin color is one of them, because my skin color is not as dark as some other Black people, Black Americans, African Americans, whichever you want to call it in America, has a tendency, to be dark, and Black skin tone. There's so many different shades of black and brown and everything in between, from very fair light to, extremely dark. And, there's such a range. And, the belief is that the only reason I have been accepted in Carroll County is because I am of a lighter skin shade. It is because of possibly that my hair texture is more conducive to being accepted by non-Black groups of people. But, I was afraid when I applied for this position, and when I came into my interview, I had on my high heels, and I don't know if you know, but my supervisor is probably about this tall to me. And I had on heels, which made him, even shorter. But, my hair was natural and it was huge when I first got here. And I wore it big, and I wanted them to see that I was a real Black woman, because I knew that it is something that could be held against me in accepting jobs and places. But I can't help my skin color. I have a baby sister who we get mistaken as twins a lot because we do really, really look alike, but our skin complexions are different. She's a lot darker than me, and I'm the lighter sister. And growing up, that's the way we were described, the lighter sister and the darker sister. And it was very hurtful, because I love my baby sister, and I think that she is way more beautiful than I am. And to think that because I'm the lighter skinned sister, or a lighter skinned Black person, that's the only reason why Carroll County would accept me. And, it was the funniest moment here in in Carroll County when I sat down with my my adult leader council with work that helped me, do what I do here. And, I discovered that Virginia Tech has this parity rule where you have to reach all the minorities in the community. Well, I don't see them, unless I look in the mirror. I don't see the minorities. I see more of them now, but in Carroll County specifically, it's kind of hard to find them. And I sat down and I said, I have to meet parity and show all reasonable efforts for reaching out to everyone in the community. And I said, where are the Black people? And where do they live? Because I might need to go canvass a neighborhood. Don't know how that's going to go over, but maybe I do. And when I tell you, the laughter reached the complete and total roof and burst through it. And I had to laugh too, because they looked at me and said, Jonette, you are our Black people. And that was so funny because I knew it was true. And, I laughed along with them because I'm like, I know, but there's got to be more than me, and we laughed, and they looked at me and they said, I'll never forget, Ron looked at me and he said, but does anybody ever treat you any differently? And I was like, no, sir, not since I have been here. If I didn't have a mirror in my house or even eyeballs in my head, I would never know that I was any different than any other person here in Carroll County, because everyone treats me with respect and hugs and, so helpful and whatnot. And so it's really changed my fears a lot about living in Carroll County, and conveying this information to, people in my Black community can be very difficult because my experience is so unique. And that's a privilege to not have that experience for whatever reason. It could be a personality. I try to be me. This is me. This is who I am. I am open to everybody, and I will talk to anybody, because what's wrong with a conversation? What's wrong with being kind and nice and saying hello and holding a door open for someone and helping someone else? But that doesn't mean that it doesn't come without some fears of how I'm going to be perceived, knowing that, there are racisms, there are prejudices that exist in this world that could turn into turmoil and conflict against me for no reason. And it's hard for me not to think that, in the last video where we talked about accountability, that, some of the backlash that I received, it's hard for me to think that it wasn't just because I was holding your kid accountable for something they did or did not do. It's a lesson that we all have to learn to take responsibility. But does it make it worse when the person who is trying to hold the person accountable is Black or is, a different race, a minority race? Is that more difficult to deal with? And if it is, then you might have just a little bit of what I consider to be that innocent racism. And, another thing, so another privilege that I do not have here, which was very obvious to me, is I can't walk into any store here and find hair care products that work for my hair. And I have begun to recognize that in the community here, as as I run into more diversity that's moving into Carroll County, and I see, little Black children or mixed race children, and their hair is very much in need of a little bit more care and help. And part of that is the hair care products don't exist here. And so finding someone who knows how to do my hair here is a challenge. So, I'm not privileged here at all when it comes to that. When it comes to lotions and body butters and finding shea butters and cocoa butters that are not Palmer's or something else, but something that is more organically produced and distributed, doesn't exist here. So I have to drive to Winston-Salem for that. So that's a privilege I don't have, simply because I was born with hair. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with my hair. It just means that in this particular area, I'm going to have difficulties. So, any other children or families who are here who realize this, and I stop Blacks when I see them here, and I'm saying, hey, where are you getting your hair cut? Because, when my son is here, I need to get his hair cut. But there is not a barber that I have met here who can, fade my child into his high top box fade, without messing it up. So I have to drive all the way to Roanoke, or so, I've driven all the way to Radford, to find a barber that could cut his hair. So think about those when you think of your privilege. And should that be something that gets changed here? Because there is a Black community here. So, how are we feeling the need to meet the need of all of the residents and citizens here in Carroll County? And so if you don't think about that, you don't really realize the disadvantage that certain minority groups have here because of that. So, just remember that. So if I want to go in and buy some nude pantyhose or some nude stockings, I need really like a coffee color or a mocha cream color. But those are very difficult to find in stores here because there just isn't a population here. So I end up having to order a lot of things. When you think about food choices, some of us have privilege because I can go anywhere and eat anything. I don't have any food allergies or anything like that. However, I do have a very ethnic mouth. Taste buds. All right. I like a lot of different kinds of food, but that does not exist here. Yeah. So that means I have to travel far to go, and find, some really good jerk chicken, nice and spicy, because that's not what people want here. because that population is not here. So yeah, that's a choice. It's not a privilege, but think about that when you go to grocery stores, because there is a pretty big Latina community here. Where do they find their spices? Where do they find their ingredients that are that they grew up with, that is part of their ethnic palate and cuisine? Because how far away do you have to travel to get that? I mean, it's not your fault. Sure, you can eat a hamburger, you can eat a pizza, you can, eat some mashed potatoes and gravy with some country fried chicken steaks and all of that. And I mean, that's really good stuff. But if that's not what you grew up on and you want, some really good stuff, then you got to travel and drive. So, just keep those things in mind, that not everyone here has the same, palate for taste. And so that brings me to privilege, and those people in society who have, that kind of privileges. What are you doing with your privilege? It's not a dirty word. Okay, let's say it together. Privilege. Privilege is nothing that you did. No one earned the privileges that they have. I have the privilege of being a very curvy, plush woman. I have the privilege of being a woman. Okay, let's just talk about how amazingly awesome women are. Not to say that men are bad. And because I say men are, because I say women are awesome, and especially mothers are fantastic, does not put down any other gender. All I'm saying is, I am incredibly happy to be a woman. I think that that is a privilege and an honor, because guess what? I can give birth. I have not seen a man yet who can pop a baby out, okay? That, my privilege. And guess what? I did nothing to earn that, okay? I was gifted that. I was born with it, but is that to say that mothers are better than those who are not mothers? Because some people have fertility issues and have the inability to carry children, and that hurts. So those of us who have the privilege of carrying children have the honor of using that privilege to be a surrogate mother for someone else, or to birth children so that others can adopt them. I mean, it's, when you think about what we have that we didn't earn, that it was gifted to us, what are you doing with your gift? I know there's a parable in the Bible that talks about gifts by speaking of talents. What are you doing with that? Are you doing and using your gift to help others, or no? But I think that's where, when it comes to innocent racism, if you don't see me as a woman, as a Black woman, as a natural hair, kinky coily Black woman, then how can you see the privilege that you have, that you could use to help me, to help bring resources into a community to help those who are underserved? And that way we are being the change, we are fulfilling the need that exists in the community. There are people here who don't have reliable transportation. I have the privilege of being able to afford reliable transportation. Doesn't mean that it's always reliable, but I have reliable transportation. I don't have the fear that it's going to put me down on the road. And if it does, I think I got a little teeny bit of finances to fix some issues. But, these are privileges of being, born into a situation, into a social class or a demographic or whatever that is privilege. So just want to read this off to you. Certain social advantages. This is what privilege is. Certain social, and this is coming from University Library at Rider University. Privilege refers to certain social advantages, benefits, or degrees of prestige and respect that an individual has by virtue of just belonging to certain social identity groups. I'm a woman. I belong to that group. I'm a Black woman. That's another group that I belong to. I have natural hair. I don't perm it or relax it. I did add color to it recently. So that puts me in another social group. I have a college degree. Guess what? That puts me in another social group because I had the privilege of being able to attain that. I mean, not everyone has that or can afford that. So these are privileges that we have. So what are we doing with these gifts? Think of privileges as a set of hurdles. And some of these hurdles you don't have to jump. So you are blessed and highly favored because you don't have to jump hurdles. However, those without privileges have a different set of hurdles to jump than you. So if I don't have to jump a hurdle and I see someone struggling to get over that hurdle, wouldn't it be nice for me to reach down and help them? Help them through that hurdle and help them to get equipped with the things that they need so that that is no longer a hurdle for them to climb. And that's the joy and the honor of having a privilege. And so it's not a dirty word. So please don't think of privilege. And when somebody says you're privileged, don't take offense to it. Say thank you. And then ask them, in what way am I privileged? Which one of my privileges are you speaking of? Because we all have a different set of privileges. And I have an activity that I want to do with you all. Let's do it on Thursday. So I'll meet you guys back here on Thursday. So tell your friends, we're going to do an activity called the Beads of Privilege. Okay, and so what you all need to do, because it's interactive, and I'm going to read off these things. You see, I've got the beads of privilege here, and this is something that we've done with new agents hired in extension, so that we understand what is it that we have an extension that we can use to help our community. What privileges do we bring to the table? What resources do we have access to that we can bring in to help improve the quality of life in our communities and help teach and train kids and adults and everyone else to better their situation and to use the gift of their voice and the gift of their talents that they have been gifted to help. So this is what you're going to need, okay? If you have like different colors of beads, that'll be great. If you've got some string and you really actually want to create a bracelet, then yeah, grab this stuff, grab some beads. If you don't have beads, grab Skittles. Doesn't matter. What you need are 7 different colors or seven different types of things. So, if you have, rocks and you want to use rocks, if you've got, Fruit Loops and Cheerios and Trix cereal or whatever, then, just grab 7 different colors or 7 different types of something to represent privilege, because there are 7 different categories of privilege. So we're going to talk about class, we're going to talk about sexuality, we're going to talk about gender, education, race, gender identity, your abilities, your religion. There's so handicaps, physical condition, mental, like there's so many different categories of privilege. Okay, and so we should talk about it, because the misunderstanding of privilege is how we end up not being able to help each other or not being willing to help each other. And when that happens, what are we doing? We've got one privileged group continuing to climb, the ladder because they don't have the same amount of hurdles or the same amount of rungs on their ladder to help them climb to a better situation. So how does that make us responsible or accountable for the people we see in the community who don't have? Okay, so do that, and you will need about 7 of each one of those colors. Okay, so you grab 7 different types of stuff. All right, beads, buttons, rocks, if you want a colorful different rocks, if whatever you have. Okay, cereal, candy, Skittles, M&Ms. You just need 7 colors of M&Ms and then 7 of each one of those colors at least. Okay, and so what we assemble in the end is going to represent our bracelet or necklace, even to show each one of those beads that you select will represent how much privilege you have in that particular category. So in the end, those with, a lot of privileges will have a much longer strain of beads. So you can see, and what this is going to teach is what areas do you have privilege, and in what areas could you focus on how to help? Where can you apply your biggest gifts in order to help others? And so privilege becomes an honor, and it becomes a responsibility to help those that we see in need, to help those that we see without a voice. When we just sit idly by and watch people struggle, when we have the opportunity and the ability to help them, that's where innocent racism comes into play. If you have the privilege and you have the power and you have the ability to make things equitable, to level the playing field for those that don't have, at what point do we say, I'm going to help and I'm going to use that which I have been gifted in order to help? Why else would some of us be gifted with these things? So, just food for thought, just think about that. I would love to be able to go and buy a flesh tone Band-Aid. They're doing much better about that. And I am going to give a huge shout out to Tara Klontz, who somebody posted a picture back a couple months ago of a doll, like a Barbie style doll that they found in the Tractor Supply, and she had chickens. She had chickens in a chicken coop, and I fell in love with it because if you don't know, I raise chickens and I love my chickens dearly. I don't have them now, and I really want to get some back again when my schedule gets a little bit more relaxed and calmer so I can be home. But I wanted one that had a black doll because I'm a black woman, and I wanted it to be representative of me when I bought and purchased this. And they had been looking for one for me and they could not find one. And we had looked on Amazon and the internet, all over the place. And there was not a single farmer woman with chickens that had a black doll baby in it. And I gave up. I did. I'm like, it's okay. But last week when I was struggling with the loss of my niece, she sent me a picture on Facebook and said, look what I found. And it was a Barbie farmer. And it was a black woman who had big black hair, fluffy black hair. And she had her boots and she had her watering can and she had her straw hat. And my kids who work with me at the schools know I've always got my hat on because I got sunburned so bad last year. But and it blessed my heart because she realized the difficulty I was having in being able to just find a doll that had my skin color. That's a privilege. And she used everything she had and found me this doll. And I'm so tickled and I'm so happy because I found the doll. So I can go now and get the chicken coop one because now I have a black little farmer doll that, that I identify with, that looks like me, that I can put in my little chicken coop and whatnot and, garden and farming and stuff. So just think about that because you might not have ever thought about that, but our Latina community being represented in toys. Something as simple as a doll, So, that it's a privilege. It is what it is. But don't think poorly of those who show some resistance to not having a privilege when there's no one with the privilege reaching out to help them, to give them a leg up. So anyway, hopefully on Thursday, let's set a time. How about Thursday how about we do like 5:30-ish? Maybe most people will be home by then and you can do this one with your family to find out what gifts have you been given and what community service thing or societal thing could you improve by using the gifts of privilege that you've been given. How could you help someone? Do you know someone who is missing something that you have that you could help them with? And that's all we're asking. And when you think about, racism and these institutionalized systems, that perpetuate that inequality, whose responsibility is it to exercise the gift of privilege that we have to help? Just saying. All right. Nobody logged on this time around, but it's okay. You can always hit me up, post up some questions, share the video. It's just a discussion. And then we'll see you back here on Thursday. I'll put a notice up for watching. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and tuning in. And I'm going to say goodbye. And hit me up if you got any questions. It's all good conversation. Bye.